to do is to just formally welcome everyone to this wonderful technology commercialization webinar that's hosted by Josh Green of George Mason University. He actually heads up the ICAP program, which is the Innovation Commercialization Assistance Program that gets some federal funding for what they do, and that is administered at our SBDC centers throughout the state. We are so thrilled that he's taken time out of his very, very, very busy schedule to come and talk with you about the different resources that are available to you in order for you to be able to launch a viable technology-based firm. So I'm going to hand over this webinar to Mr. Green. And again, thank you so much for coming.
Absolutely. And I really appreciate you having me. I'm excited to go through my presentation today. And I am a big proponent of questions. So in the chat box, if you do have any questions at any point, if you'll add them in, I'll go through at the end and make sure that all of those get answered. So we have a small group today, so I'm going to cover my presentation and then would really like to learn more about what your thoughts are in terms of if you have an idea or you've already started a venture, and see how either myself or our program might be able to assist you. So I am going to share my screen. So give me just a moment to do that. All right. So can everybody see the screen okay? All right, perfect. Getting the head nod. So as was mentioned, the ICAP program, which is out of George Mason University and the Virginia SBDC, we are funded in part by George Mason and the SBA, the Small Business Administration. I am, again, Josh Green. I'm the director of the program, and I am looking forward to having not only the discussion afterwards, but hopefully any follow-on with folks that want to talk more about technology entrepreneurship or how ICAP might be able to assist your efforts. So we're also very fortunate to have several other grants that allow us to fund the work that we're doing. They're CIT, Go Virginia, the Commonwealth Cyber Initiative, and Virginia Bio. All of these groups are allowing us to do what we're doing and make it possible to reach out and work with as many technology entrepreneurs in the Commonwealth as possible. So getting us kicked off, going to talk about a few things today. What is tech? What does that mean? The startup journey, a little bit about our program, share a couple of success stories and some resources, and then get into that Q&A portion. Again, if you have any questions, please throw them in the chat now so you don't forget them, and then we'll get to those at the end. So starting off, what is tech? What does tech mean? So there's the classic definition, which is electronics, things that are related to digital electronics, software, anything that's internet related or e-commerce services. That's really the what I'll call old school traditional viewpoint. There are a few more modern categories based off of the advancement of technology. So the Internet of Things, which are connected devices, artificial intelligence, machine learning, all of those things are encompassed within tech. And then there are a number of categories that are also included. So all of those things can be encompassed in IT and fintech, financial technology, edtech, educational technology. So those are all in the spectrum of what is tech and what a lot of people refer to and speak about. So life science is also another item within the general tech umbrella that's important. So this can be medical devices, pharmaceuticals, therapeutics, agricultural biotech, as well as biotech. And then they have their own kind of tech add-ons. So things like med tech. Those are all relevant tech type companies that we certainly work with and are under that umbrella. And there's many others. Every industry has essentially come up with a way to leverage technology in order to make their processes more efficient or more effective. So you have agricultural technology, manufacturing, real estate, regulations, legal, clean technology. All of those things are within the tech realm. And another important part of that category is innovation. So innovation doesn't necessarily need to include technology in and of itself. It's about, are you doing an old process in a new way, or creating value from an old process in a new way that will allow a user, an end user, to be able to leverage that additional value through the innovative new process. And what all that means is tech is more than just tech. And I think that it's a matter of, a lot of people need to look at it differently. There's a big focus on being high growth and scalable. That means that the potential market is large, and that the organization that somebody has created can grow and go from a small organization to a very large organization, and can ultimately be ramped up fairly quickly with the right resources. So as I mentioned, tech is more than just tech. And getting into what a tech startup is that, to me, it's really anything within this new grouping of categories that are ventures that are innovative, and they're scalable, and they have that high growth potential. So I want to make sure that everybody understands that the person who's on a farm, who they invent something new that doesn't have an electronics chip or a microprocessor, that's just as much within a tech innovation sphere as somebody that has a traditional cybersecurity venture. So want to make sure we're all on the same page first and foremost there. Talking about what we do within ICAP, our program, as I mentioned, we are a program of George Mason University in the Virginia SBDC. We're located in Fairfax, Virginia, but we have individuals who are throughout the state, and we're actually expanding our team to increase the local capability of our mentors. So we operate, and our goal is to assist any Virginia-based technology and innovation-driven startups. So that's really why I wanted to get deep into the definition of what is technology. So it's a really broad umbrella, so we can work with a lot of different types of companies. The main purpose of our program is to connect entrepreneurs one-on-one with a lead mentor that's one of the pool of ICAP mentors that we have, who are all very experienced entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs, and that we can leverage our entire team to help that individual entrepreneur. We follow lean startup methodology as it's taught by the National Science Foundation's I-Core program. That stands for Innovation Core. And for those of you who are maybe familiar with lean startup, the focus is understanding the needs in the market. What is the demand in the market? What's not going right now? What can be improved, excuse me. And who are the people who need to see that improvement's value? So who's the customer? And are they doing anything about the issue that you have identified now? That's a really important piece of developing what I'll get a lot into later, which is a business model that can be successful. And we begin working with folks to validate a business model, meaning that they have gone out and they have validated it through talking to people in the market and the buying ecosystem to know that there is a problem, they're spending money on it now, and that it's large enough that there's a sustainable enterprise that can be created out of that. In conjunction with the business model, creating a go-to-market strategy, understanding how you're going to penetrate that initial market and then grow from there. And then we continue to work with ventures as long as they are continuing to move forward through to the growth phase. So that is after they've transitioned out of being a startup and they're becoming a traditional organization, and they need to develop traditional elements within a business. So a large scale marketing plan, a sales plan, HR infrastructure. So we cover that entire spectrum from ideation all the way through multiple levels of funding. So at the end of the day, what that really means to you is by joining our program, you get access to a highly experienced team of ICAP mentors that can help guide your efforts. They're offered at no cost and completely confidential. We are funded by the Commonwealth, so our only goal is for your success. And we make sure that you're getting directed to the right resources at the right time. This is a key thing that I'll talk more about in a little bit. And we have monthly calls that cover a number of different startup related topics. And it's also an opportunity to interact with fellow entrepreneurs from around the Commonwealth, both potentially from your industry that you're looking to get into, and also in your area within the Commonwealth. So I know if you are on campus right now, you're in the greater Central Virginia, Richmond area. But if you're from somewhere else in the Commonwealth, we have folks literally from as far west to as far east and north and south as you can get. So there's a community out there of folks that are part of our program already. And again, the team is focused on your success. So whatever you need, we will try to make sure that we can deliver that. We can't guarantee it, but if you need things, we are looped into a number of different resource partners and opportunities throughout the state. So we try to leverage that as much as possible. And one of the big things is that we will help hold you accountable. So if you work with us and you create a plan to move forward and you talk about, hey, I want to get this done by a particular date, then we will make sure that we're following up with you, we're keeping track, and that we're that one more voice to help make sure that you're moving forward. And again, our only goal is your success. So we're not trying to make money off of you. We don't take equity. We're not pushing you in one direction or another. We just really want to make sure that you are finding success. And success means different things to different people. For me, there's two types of success. The traditional success, which is, hey, we work with you and you're getting investment, you're getting customers, you're growing, and you're building a business. But there's another type of success. And that is understanding if the idea that you have isn't viable as a sustainable enterprise, so that you learn that hopefully faster, so that you're saving time and money, so that you can move on to your next venture or your next idea. So finding out there is no business in the idea that you have is success. That means that you're not going to go down the right path, or excuse me, the wrong path. So again, that's one of those things that most people think success is only, building a big enterprise. But understanding if you have an idea and it's not viable, finding that out early is also very successful. So now what I'd like to do is actually talk about the startup journey and where things fit in. So this is the general startup journey. And it begins with either the research phase or the ideation stage. So for research, that's generally to prove if something is possible. So a lot of that's coming out of a lab or a university. Otherwise, it's generally in the ideation stage. So it's possible if you can write the code or you can pay somebody to write the code. You just have the idea on what the business would be. And that's the ideation stage. So those to me are looped into developing the idea and creating the idea that you're wanting to move forward. Then you move into the customer discovery phase and business model validation phase. So for customer discovery, that's part of the lean startup methodology. And that is going out and talking to prospective customers. And this isn't talking about your idea, it's talking about what they're doing now, getting their stories, learning about what they're doing. And the reason for that is to create an atmosphere where you're learning in an unbiased environment. So if you say, hey, I have an accounting software and I'd really like to learn about what you're doing now and what you're using now, they already they're already on their back foot to say, oh, they're going to try and sell me something. Do I need to hide things? So it's really important to make sure that you are just in a fact-finding mode. So talking about just wanting to learn about what they're doing now. So sticking with the idea of an accounting software, talking to people in the type of accounting firm or type of business that you think could use it the most. And it's getting very specific. So it could be people who are in medium-sized businesses that have 50 to 200 employees and do $10 million a year in revenue. So you find those companies, you reach out to their accounting department, and you ask questions about what they're using now, what they like, what they don't like. If they don't like things, what are they doing about it? Are they actively trying to find solutions for the things that they don't like? Getting the information that creates insights. And through those insights, you can validate your business model. It's about forming a hypothesis and testing that. So making sure that if you assume it's that type of company that I described, if people start to regularly tell you that, yes, we have a big problem with the number of steps it takes to put in the information, then you want to make sure that you're noting that and seeing if others are bringing up that same type of information. Once you build that validated business model, each element that can be confirmed by facts that you found out from your interviews, your customer discovery, then you actually move into the startup phase. And if somebody is not familiar with the business model or the business model canvas, at the end, I'm happy to show one and talk about it. So once somebody is in the startup phase, that is the point where you're actually in business. So the phase up until that, and this is where timing is really important, you don't need to have a business license. You're just doing some research. You're just learning. It saves you time and money that you didn't need to spend if you decide that the venture isn't worth pursuing. So the startup process is ultimately trying to get some either pilots or early sales in order to show traction, to get started and prove out your business model. From there, you want to grow in that initial segment that you were proving out, expanding both within that segment and then into other segments. So expanding that market to grow the enterprise. And that's not a short process. That's usually a longer term process, but it's about getting bigger and ultimately growing and becoming that growth organization. Then within the startup process, then you get into the exit. And this is ultimately when money is being distributed to those that invested in the business. So this can be the business is being purchased outright. It could be the company actually rebuying their own stock to go private, going public through some kind of IPO, initial public offering, as well as a couple other options. But it's essentially the money that is being brought in is being distributed to those who did the early investing. Kind of the next part of the process is funding. So I wanted to talk about this because, again, this is a timing element that is really important in the process. So from that early research stage all the way through customer discovery, grant funding is really the only option for folks, short of people coming out of a research institution where there may be some private investment. Generally, those are life science related, or it's because it's coming to solve a problem from a company that they ultimately are going to have some ownership. But those are outliers. Predominant number of startups are dependent on, if they have any availability of funding, it's grants. Then there's this phase, which is called the friends and family or friends and family and fools stage, also called the valley of death. This is where funding is traditionally very difficult to get. And when people talk about bootstrapping, this is where that ultimately comes in the biggest degree. This is the point where people are having to build their product or their solution, and it's very difficult to get investment because in the 90s, people could generate an idea, come up with a pitch, and get money just based off of the idea. And a tremendous amount of money was wasted, and a lot of venture groups used all of their capital and got nothing in return. So that model over the past 20, 30 years has changed. And it's really about investors want to de-risk as much as possible. There are pre-seed rounds where you can find an angel or another investor that invest a little bit earlier. And I'll talk about that in a little bit, but when people take money, it's really important to understand what that means and what money is meant for. Generally, investment dollars are not meant to pay the founder's salary. It's meant to essentially pay for customers. So hiring new people, purchasing product, purchasing marketing and sales teams. So it's really important to understand what people are investing in and what they're not investing. Once you do get some traction through that startup phase, that's when traditional seed rounds begin, where you may have gotten anywhere between 1 and 100 customers on your own, and you can prove your business model. Then investors are going to come in and say, oh, okay, I'll give you X amount of dollars. Let's call it $250,000 to go from 10 customers to 100. And then as you approach the end of that money that you're going to be spending, you will have already needed to start working on getting more money so that you can get from that second round of customers to the third round, which may be 500 customers or 1,000, and that might be anywhere between $500,000 or $1 million. And these are hypothetical, so the numbers are not set. It's very, very unique to each business, but it's giving you smaller or larger amounts of money as you grow. Again, very rarely are you getting $10 million up front that you use over the course of your business. It's usually broken up into gradually larger amounts. And again, I'm happy to get into this a little bit in more detail. I have a slide at the end that I can show to highlight this. Once that startup does grow and they're using that funding and they become a growth organization, that's when you get larger amounts of money. So when you hear about companies getting 10 million, 50 million, $100 million, these are when companies are getting very, very large and their customer bases are getting either very large or very high dollar amounts. So if somebody has a new supersonic aircraft, they may only need 10 customers because the individual cost of the product is so high. So again, that's where the nuances of the type of business is really important. So our program has an introductory course on lean startup, and it's meant for businesses that are anywhere in that ideation through customer discovery phase. And then our program is a great lead into vertical accelerators. So Lighthouse Labs in Richmond is a good example where companies that are working with us, we prepare them to be in a good position to apply for and get selected from accelerators in the Commonwealth, as well as accelerators outside of the Commonwealth. And then our program as a whole will continue from that ideation stage to work with companies all the way through the growth stage. So we stick around and we have, generally it's the same mentor that you're working with over a long period of time. I'll get into some success stories in a little bit that highlight the length of time we work with folks. So I mentioned that timing is really important, and there are several key points that I'd like to bring up. So when and where you start is very important, and that timing, again, is vital. And it's about understanding when you need to focus on things. And I talk about it in a particular way where there's the fun parts of entrepreneurship where you're actually getting customers, you're closing investment deals, and you're growing. That's the fun part. There's a really, 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 really hard part before that that takes a lot of time and effort to do it effectively to get to the fun part. There's a reason why very few people get venture investment out of the hundreds of thousands of startups that are out there. And it's because it is so hard and it does take so much work to get to the right position. So that first part is the business model validation, making sure that the investor knows exactly who your customer is and why they're buying. This is ultimately how they know that there's a real opportunity in the venture. The several other key items that are really important to think about. Some people might think that going through this process is a a process that takes longer and they could just skip steps. But ultimately, when you skip steps, it takes much longer because you have to backtrack. A lot of people throw around the word pivot. Pivoting is much more common when people are skipping these initial steps because they end up going down a wrong path, find out that nobody's there, and then have to backtrack and go down another path. Our process and the process that's used across the country by a lot of organizations, Lean Startup, is a proven method to be able to go faster. We talk about it in the context of accelerating commercialization. So the first key item is, when do you need to create a legal entity? So unless you have some sort of requirement, like if you are applying for a grant and you need to be a legal entity, you really don't need to be a legal entity until you actually start doing business, meaning that you are going to start making sales. So you can wait to do this process until much later, which saves you time and saves you money until you know that there's a real viable business enterprise. The next is when to protect your intellectual property. I'm not an attorney. I'm not providing legal advice. But it's really important to understand what intellectual property does and doesn't do. So I'll use the example of a patent. If somebody invents something that's novel and they want to patent it, and they say, well, the first thing I have to do is I have to patent this because I don't want anybody to steal it. So what a patent does is it protects you and provides you an umbrella that if somebody steals your idea, you can say, well, I patented this. I'm going to sue you because you made money off of an idea and time that I spent creating. The problem sometimes with this is that if you are an accounting software, using the same example, and let's say TurboTax or Intuit steals your idea, and they steal the coding process that you have for your accounting software, you can sue them. But they have so much money that they could sue you into a place where you have to shut your own business down because you have no money to spend to continue to fight them. So they could win in the end because they have more money. So that's why it's important to know, one, if there's a viable enterprise there, and try to, working with an attorney, find the right time to actually put your intellectual property up for protection, so that there's the least amount of time for somebody else to know what you're doing. It's about finding that sweet spot. It's not about doing it as the first thing. The next is when to bring on a co-founder or employees. This is something that's really important and has long-term ramifications on your business enterprise. So if you bring on a co-founder, the question is, what value are they bringing to the organization? And if you have you should always have a written agreement. What are the terms within that agreement, and how long do they need to be involved, and what are they providing, and are there milestones? This is where having a really good mentor who's done this before comes into play. So understanding what those nuances are. And then for employees, making sure that you understand, is it somebody where I should give them equity, or I should just hire them as an employee? And again, as part of their agreement for their work, I, as the business owner, own the work that they're doing. That's really important because you don't want them to walk away if they don't like what's going on and say, well, it's not in the agreement that you own my code, so I own the code and you were just essentially using that code, and I don't want to share it with you anymore. So you need to have those really important pieces not only written into agreements, but know when you need to bring those people on. And then the big one is, when do you need to start looking for capital? Most people say they need capital really early, and that is really not the case. You need to go as long as possible without capital, because once you start seeking capital and you get capital, you can't stop. You can never run out of money, because if you do, your chances of getting more money thereafter go down significantly. So once you get money, you need to start showing results very quickly, because the investors want to see that they bet on a winning horse. So it's important to make sure that you have a very clear understanding of when you should be getting money, what it should be used for, and how much you're going to need initially, and then how much you're going to need thereafter. Again, this is where a mentor who's working with you can play a really key role. The next thing with capital is, what do investors want to see? And we describe that as the 5 hurdles to funding. And so I'll go over those now. These elements are really fundamental to our program, and that's what we focus on. And it's because we've worked with investors. A number of the members on our team are either former or current investors. And so these are the things that they do and they want to see in order to de-risk the venture, meaning the chances of them getting a return on their investment are that much higher. And again, it's really important to remember that almost nobody is funding an idea for you to start from the very beginning. And if they do, it's really important to understand, who is that investor giving you money, and is it smart money? Meaning, are they bringing other things to the table? Meaning, are you getting subject matter expertise? So if you're an accounting venture, are they a financial technology investor? Do they have connections in your industry and your segment? What other kinds of connections that can they make in order for you to leverage their experience and be able to move forward successfully? So the first thing, which I've talked about, is you got to validate that business model. That's really important. The next thing is making sure that you have the team that can execute on that. So if you have a business model that is human capital intensive, and you need to have people with subject matter expertise or employees who know a particular industry, do you have that in place when you're starting to look for investment? The next is building the minimal viable product that is market ready. So a minimal viable product, some people call it a prototype. It is essentially the product with the least amount of features that meets the need of your customer segment. So this means no bells and whistles. If through your customer discovery, you learn that accounting software just has to do one thing to serve this initial client, that's all you would build. You can always add features later, but you want to make sure that you're validating your business model through those early sales, because it just has that one feature that they really need. Or if it's 3 features that they really need, you're making sure that you have that in place. The next piece is establishing those pilots and early sales and understanding what your pipeline is going to be. So showing traction. When people talk about traction, that's what that means. That you are going to customers and they are saying, yes, I want to pilot this, or I want to purchase this, and be one of your first customers. And then finally, having the key partnerships and resources in order to speed market entry. So this could be joining an accelerator. It could be getting connected to an industry partner or a trade organization. It could be connecting to investors and getting capital. Whatever is going to take to ultimately get your products and your venture out into the market, and do that quickly. Those are the partnerships that you want to make sure you have. And it's not that you necessarily have all of them, but you know what you need. Those are the 5 key hurdles to funding that it's really important to make sure that folks are hitting on before they get investment. Because ultimately, when you meet with an investor, first impressions are the only impressions that really matter. There are many people that if they don't like what you're saying, they'll stop you mid-pitch and say, you know what, I'm not interested. So you need to have a very good, clear case from the beginning. So I wanted to talk again briefly about the companies that we've worked with. Over the past almost 4 years, we've worked with almost 700 Virginia-based tech companies. And those groups are very early stage. So they're starting off, many from the ideation stage and moving forward. And they've gone on to raise over $50 million in capital. And of those 700, not everybody was funded. In fact, I would say there were fewer than 100 that have actually received investment, and probably fewer than 50 that have received substantial investment. So to me, that's somewhere of $50,000 or more. So it's really highlighting that there are a lot of people who want to create a successful enterprise, but there's fewer and fewer that get to that top. So the more work you put in on the front end, the more likely that you are to move forward. And we're very fortunate. We have, well over 100 partners on a local, regional, and statewide level that we connect people to when they're ready in order to move their business venture forward. So I wanted to talk about ultimately three clients that we have worked with over the past few years to highlight this. So one is Jiva. They're a Northern Virginia company. They do virtual clinical trials, and we've worked with them for almost 4 years. And they have worked from just being an idea, moving it forward, and coming out of a university, they were able to get a grant to go to that National Science Foundation ICOR program that I mentioned earlier. That's a $50,000 grant in order to further their customer discovery. Since then, Jiva, who's the founder on the right, he has continued to meet with investors, move the business forward, establish some pilots, and has received venture investment from a number of different groups and is growing his business. But I bring this one up and also the next one, that this is not a quick process. Most people who have an idea today, they're not getting their business to market and getting investment for multiple years. So we really encourage people, again, that a mentor is going to be very helpful in this process. And I also like to highlight that if you have a day job, don't quit your day job. This should absolutely be a side business or side hustle for as long as possible to de-risk the venture for yourself so that you have backup plans as well. Another company that we worked with for almost 4 years, Rising Technology out of Stanton, they have a robotics company that they've also been working with the government and have gone through an ICOR program through NASA. And again, their business has changed a number of times over the course of the last few years because they've learned so many different things from the market. And then finally, we actually have been working with a Virginia State professor for the past almost 4 years on a educational technology venture. And she also went to National ICOR through the National Science Foundation and has learned a lot and has made a lot of changes, a lot of pivots. So we highlight this because we work with folks for the long term. We want to make sure that they have the resources that they need, that if they slow down, we can slow down. If they speed up, we can speed up with them. And it's really important to us that we're making sure that they continue to get the guidance that they need. So getting back into resources, one, if folks are looking for help, please reach out to me. I'm happy to talk with you and or connect you with an ICAP mentor to get you started. But when using resources, it's really important to know what you need and when you need it. You need to have a plan for what you're trying to accomplish, and then have a plan for what you're going to do in order to accomplish those things. It's really important to use people that you can trust, and that's only established through meeting people, getting references, talking to others, establishing that relationship that you know and believe that they can deliver on what they say they can deliver. So that's something that we really value from our program, is because we have a lot of success stories working with clients, and we've built a lot of trust with a lot of people that we are a known resource that is there to assist. So it's really important to know where you're going to go and what you're going to get. So I did want to talk about resources in a more specific way. There are a lot of resources out there, so you need to know what's right for you. And related to startups, there are a lot of resources that say they can do things to help you, but they may not actually be able to help either you or your type of business. So you really want to make sure that you know what you're getting into. Pardon me, especially if that venture, or excuse me, that resource costs money or takes equity. You want to make sure that you're protecting your time, your money, and the ownership of your company as much as possible. So you really need to make sure you know what is right for you. And you want to take advantage of as much as possible, as long as it's a good fit and at the right time. So with that, I'll start talking about some of the specific things. So first, there's funding. Like I talked about, there's grants. There are lots of grants out there. One that is specifically related to underrepresented founders is there's a new Fairfax County Founders Fund. And this hasn't been launched yet, but it's an example of resources being put out to make sure that there are funds available in generally this is an earlier stage fund for underrepresented groups, either geographically or demographically. So it's important to know what those resources are. There's also regional and statewide resources and national resources. National are usually either federal grants or private grants. And grants are usually very specifically focused. So for instance, Prince William County, they had the Ignite grant earlier this year. And that was specifically for technology, high growth potential companies who were in Prince William County. And they had two different options. There was an early stage grant that was $25,000 and a later stage grant that was $50,000. So we're happy to try to, if you want to reach out to me and talk about funding and what that could look like for you specifically, I'm happy to try to help out. I only gave a few specific examples here because there are so many that are very niche. And right now there are a larger number than previously available options for folks who are women or female-owned businesses, minority-owned businesses, as well as geographically underrepresented businesses. So there are not a lot of resources out there, but there are more than previous. And the resources that are already out there, most are looking more specifically within the underrepresented communities because they want to make sure they're doing a better job of looking at every good opportunity. Ultimately, the decision comes down to, do they think it's going to be a worthwhile venture? So if they have a new pool that they can draw from, they're trying to do that. The next thing is friends and family, and sometimes called friends and family and fools round, because this is where a lot of money is lost. And it can be very scary because you're taking money from people that you know and that are intimate within your life. We've worked with a number of folks that they took money from their friends, their family, and they lost it. And they spent decades trying to pay it all back. And it can be very, very difficult to do that. So it's really important to, again, only go down that friends and family route if you really have some early traction and you know what you're doing, in the sense that you've proven out your market. Again, a good mentor is where this can come into play. In some instances, commercial loans like bank loans and lines of credit can be options. Again, this is riskier because you're leveraging likely your personal assets in order to get that money. And it can be difficult to make that decision. Again, mentorship and an accountant and an attorney can be very helpful in this endeavor. Later, you get into the more traditional angel and venture investments. So there are a number of angel groups throughout the Commonwealth. There's within Charlottesville and Richmond and a few places in between, there are a number of angel groups. And there's also CIT. They're the state's venture funding group, and they're the most active venture in the Commonwealth. They also have what's called the Virginia Founders Fund. And this is, again, pre-seed money, so earlier money, specifically for underrepresented folks. So female founders, veteran founders, minority founders, and also geographically underrepresented areas as well. And then once you get into kind of the larger rounds, when you hear people say like Series A and B and C, that gets into private investment, and that's later stage. So again, this is brief. I'm happy to get into it if people have individual questions once we're at the end, but wanted to give an overview of kind of what this landscape looks like and just a few opportunities that are relevant for folks that are coming from any of the underrepresented communities. I will say that Black-owned businesses right now are getting a heavier emphasis from groups within the Commonwealth because they have been underrepresented in the funding landscape. So a number of institutions are really trying to make sure that they're doing a better job of finding the folks who they can invest in. And so CIT is an example of that, where their Founders Fund is a way to get people in sooner that could be and is trying to be a pathway into what is known as their GAP fund, so their traditional investment funding. And then there are some space and startup resources. So there are a number of incubators out there, and an incubator is a place where you can get a small office to rent at either no cost or low cost, and then also get some wraparound services. So some guidance, some access to lower cost healthcare, some guidance and mentorship in particular areas of a business. There are accelerators, like I mentioned, Lighthouse Labs, in order to help get you from early traction in order to heavier sales through their network and their connections. If you're looking for larger space outside of a kind of a co-working environment, economic development organizations are focused on trying to help you find the right space for you. There's also technology councils, there's chambers of commerce. Specifically in Richmond, there's the Jackson Ward Collective and the Minority Business League, two great groups that are working on issues related to minority businesses and minority founders. So if you're not connected there and are interested, please make sure that you're reaching out. I'm happy to make a couple of connections. And then there's also local SBDC. So if you're in the greater Richmond area, there's the Capital Region SBDC. And that if you are setting up your business somewhere else, even if it's outside of Virginia, there's always going to be a local small business development center in order to help provide some at least early stage guidance. So I've thrown out a lot of information in a very short amount of time. So I want to transition over to answering any questions that folks have. I will answer the questions that are in chat first. I see 3. I don't know if they're questions, but I see that there were 3 chats added in while I was talking. And here's my contact information. I can also throw in the chat a little bit if somebody wants to follow up. And then I have a couple more slides if anybody asks questions specifically about those topics. All right. So, all right. So I see somebody joined. A couple of faculty members have joined as well, and another resource is the Minority Small Business Launch Center at Virginia State. So make sure that you're taking advantage of anything that you can. That's a resource that you're already connected to through this, so it's a great place to start and understand what is available. So I don't see any questions in the chat. Would anybody like to unmute and ask a question, or you can still throw a question out in the chat?
Mr. Green has shared some wonderful, wonderful information with us. I'm sure that someone has a question. While they're waiting on developing theirs, I'd like to ask how one would sign up for your program. What is the very first step that they should take if they'd like to take advantage of some of the resources that you have to offer?
Yeah, absolutely. So I will copy not only my email address, but the link
within established time frames. That would be a descriptive category.
Sounds like somebody needs to mute themselves.
You can have things that are what we call behavioral dimensions.
Let's see. All right. So in the chat, I put my email address and the link to our website. On our website, there is an application, and folks can apply. That application comes to me, and if they're interested in asking some questions or learning more, emailing me is the best way. I can set up either answer those questions via email, or we can set up a time to connect one-on-one via Zoom. So the easiest way is either email me or apply through the website. So great question. And I see that Michelle Harris has her hand up.
Yes, good afternoon.
Hey there.
I had a question. Do you know about the John Randolph Foundation, about their grants?
I don't.
Oh, okay. Well, that was one of my questions, because I submitted one last year, December of last year. And I didn't hear anything back from them.
Okay.
So I didn't know like the process for that. And then my other question was about the, like, if you needed like an office space, one of the places that you said are all the office space you have to rent, or will they let you use them without paying for it?
So a vast majority of the office space providers, you have to actually rent them. So you're spending some amount of money in order to be able to use that space. So co-working spaces, they have usually what's called like a hot desk, which is just, they provide a desk where you can get access to internet, a refrigerator, a coffee machine, probably some additional support items that are usually the lowest cost options. And there are a few opportunities, like in the Norfolk area, there's 757 Startup Studios where you can apply to the program. If you're selected, they provide 6 months of free office space in their location. But a vast majority of folks do require that you are paying. My feeling is that you try to use as many free resources as possible for as long as possible. So traditionally, universities have some space that if you're a student at that university, locations where you can work at no cost and get some privacy and get some quiet. Otherwise, if it's just a matter of needing a professional looking location, it's about finding a corner in your room. I just moved, so there's nothing up on my walls yet, but there will be soon. Just finding a small corner where you can make it look professional or use a virtual background. And if there's another need for space that you're looking for, feel free to follow up and let me know. But traditionally, it's you need to pay a little something, and you can use a co-working space to have access to a desk and probably a conference room. And then beyond that, it really gets into what the business needs.
And just to add on to what Mr. Green said, is that I know that the City Point Innovation Center, which is something that NBL is doing, which is something that you, which may be in a proximity for you to access if you are a VSU student or faculty member, they offer discounted co-working space for small businesses. And one thing that we're going to start doing with the Minority Small Business Launch Center is offering a one day out of the week that's going to be a student entrepreneurship day, and another day that's going to be a faculty entrepreneurship day. And then you'd be able to access our co-working space, which is essentially a place where you can use our internet. It's a quiet space. You'll have to have scheduled time in there. Our employee who just started today is here, who'll be monitoring that space. And so you'll have access to all of the resources, which will include full color printer, a 3D printer, and all of those other resources. So give us time to develop it. But even while we're working on building out all of the technology that will be in there, you will by November be able to access a space once a week where you'll be able to come and work.
All right, so I'm gonna take a shot at your name, Initia.
Spot on. Thank you.
All right, that might be the first time I've ever gotten it right. So, what is your question?
So my question is alongside the office space. Would there be possibly any commissary kitchen availability? Excuse me.
Like a commercial kitchen?
Yes.
So there are, I don't know specifically where they are, but I do know that there are a couple of commercial kitchens that can be used for startups as like a test bed.
Okay.
Where are you located?
I'm in the Chester area.
In the, did you say Chester?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Is that near Chesterfield, so the greater Richmond area?
Correct.
Okay. So what I would recommend you do, and I would be happy to make an introduction. Rodney Williams is the director of the Capital Region SBDC, and that area is covered within your area. And he would be in the best position to know if there's a commercial kitchen that's available in that capacity. So if you wouldn't mind sending me an email, I will follow up to make that connection and then start the conversation to see if there's something nearby.
Thank you so much.
All right. And next up, so Latrice.
Hi, yes. I'm unmuting and turning on my camera because I'm a school teacher, and when I tell my students to turn your camera on and ask your question and be polite, they don't do it. So I have to follow my own rules, right?
Perfect. Yes, I agree.
So good morning. I do have a question about startup funding timeframe. So I know that a lot of times they want to see a history of what you've done to get your business off the ground before providing funding for startups. Is there a time frame that we should wait, or a certain amount of work that we should have done before requesting startup funds, or are there startup funds that can help us get kicked off the ground immediately?
Absolutely. So I appreciate your question, and it allows me, I'm going to reshare my screen because I have a slide that I think will help kind of get the conversation going. So can you see my screen? Okay, perfect. So don't mind the bottom part. This is for a Department of Defense startup. That ultimately doesn't matter. What matters is this kind of tranched money setup, which I was describing a little earlier. So when I was talking about the MVP and developing your product, you see up here that there's no venture money. So this is where you would be looking for grants and bootstrapping, so you finding money any way that you can. Each different type of business has different opportunities. So if you hypothetically were creating a life science venture, so you had a medical device, they typically can get money sooner because the development time related to the FDA regulatory process is much longer. So they know that if somebody doesn't get the money, that they're ultimately not going to be able to bring that product to market. When it comes to educational technology, would you consider your venture an educational technology? You said school teacher, so I'm making a guess.
No, it's actually in healthcare.
Okay. Healthcare. Oh, perfect. All right. So within healthcare, then you want to make sure that you are, one, mentorship is a big thing if you're going into the healthcare field. That this same thing still applies. So likely you would be looking at grants to get you through to this MVP stage. And can everybody see my cursor where I'm highlighting here? Okay, perfect. So once you actually get the grant funding to push you to a point where you have a basic ability to show that your product works, and in healthcare, that can be animal testing, that can be very early stage stuff. Then you can start to get some investment. And again, it's going to be that small investment just to get you through that first round. Then you'll notice that this part never gets to zero. That as your money's about to run out, you've already set up more money to get you to the next phase and up and down. And then you get to a point where by the time you take your last big investment, you have generated enough revenue where you can self-sustain as an organization. So specifically for a healthcare venture, there are a lot of different opportunities because it's such a very innovative field where, will you let me know what kind of healthcare? Is it a device? Is it a platform? What's the type of business?
It's services. It's physical fitness and nutrition.
Okay, so related to that, I'm going to make a hypothetical. So forgive me, it's not what your business is, and I hope it's not your business because I just want to make a easy to use hypothetical. So it's about understanding what group that are within the investment community for healthcare is related to what you're doing. So is it a physical therapist's practice, or a group that owns a large amount of physical therapy practices? Is it a gym or a fitness center facility that has lots of facilities that they would be interested in implementing your service? So it's really understanding where you fit in the puzzle and then pursuing people that have knowledge and experience in your field. So that's when I talked about smart money. If you found somebody that was a restaurateur and they said, oh, I really love your idea, I want to give you $10,000 or I want to give you $100,000. The question is that money going to actually hurt you in the end? Because all you're getting is the money. They maybe don't have any connection to healthcare. They don't have any connections to gyms or physical therapy clinics. That you're getting the money, but then you have to spend time and resources and energy to still find those other things that you're going to need. You really want to find the total package. You want to find somebody who's not only going to give you the money, but can help provide you connections, which they're incentivized to do because their money is meant to help you move forward in the business in order to scale, to get bigger. So I want to stop. Did I answer your question, or did I at least give you a baseline?
Definitely giving me a baseline of other ways to approach our funding issues. Thank you. That helps a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, please feel free to follow up if you want to get deeper into it.
Thank you.
All right, so I'm going to stop sharing my screen again, and I don't see any other questions. Oh, perfect. And it looks like somebody threw out, there's a commercial kitchen. I'd love to be able to crowdsource resources. I know a lot of different people across the Commonwealth, but I don't know nearly everybody. So I love when people throw out a question and somebody else answers it when they have the info. Any other questions? I will say, Patrice, do you have a student that you know is here that you would like to specifically call on so that they ask a question that you know that they would benefit from?
I actually think that the information that you shared has been sufficient. I don't want to put anyone
All
on the
right.
spot. Right?
I always like to give the right of refusal for somebody to volunteer somebody to have to ask a question.
Sure, no.
When it's a school assignment.
Sure. No, but we just so appreciate you coming today, Josh, and talking to us about all of these wonderful resources that exist in the state of Virginia and through your program. And I just want everyone to give him a round of applause for the wonderful resources that he's provided. Take your microphone off of mute and let's just give him a round of applause. We're very, very, very grateful for what you shared. I just wanted to follow up with this information. I want to share my screen very quickly and just let you guys know that we have a website. It's not just a website that's there for it to look as if we're doing something. On our website for the Minority Small Business Launch Center, what we have is we have some certification training that you guys can access. And that certification training will help you with not just developing your business model and quantifying the size of your target market, some things that are very, very important for you to be able to demonstrate to potential funders that you have thought through this business concept that you're attempting to get them to assist you with funding. But you're also able to, when you go through our certification training, then you're able to come up with the cost of goods sold worksheet. You're able to come up with operating expenses worksheet, and then ultimately a profit and loss statement. And I think that all of those things, in addition to you developing a low-level marketing plan and some of the other basic steps associated with being able to provide some introductory proof of concept before you've actually been able to develop some sort of prototype, is a very useful activity. So I just want to mention to everyone that's here, if you've not yet seen this, that you can go to minoritysmallbusinesslaunchcenter.com. You technically should enroll first where it says enroll for free down here, because then you are entitled to all of the free resources that we have to offer. But then you can just readily go in here and click on this certification training. I have it up on my screen so you can see what it looks like. I'm actually logged in as an administrator, but it's a very simple process. You literally would click on the certification training. I'll do that. It takes you to that page we were on. You click on sign up. And then you choose whether or not you want the Pro Small Business Launch Certificate or the Student Small Business Launch Certificate. The Student Small Business Launch Certificate does not have the profit and loss statement. It doesn't have the cost of goods sold worksheet. So some of the financial calculations are not there, but it really does still help you with initial idea development and understanding your business model and your concept. But the Pro Small Business Launch Certificate, you just sign up here. This gives you an idea of all the different things that it would take you through. You click login, and it will ultimately take you to a place where you can enroll in this course. Once you click on enroll, then you're able to get in here, and then it will take you through some wonderful, simple to understand steps, and it'll give you access to a document that will allow you to develop your business concept. It actually starts out with you having the appropriate entrepreneurial mindset and understanding the sacrifices that it's going to take for you to. It also goes through a management skills checklist, so you understand what resources you have and skills that you have and ones that you'll need to outsource. And ultimately, it gets you to your business model, your target market, and then the finances associated with your business. So just a wonderful resource that we have here that is available to you guys for free once you sign up, that will help you to be able to better access some of the resources that Mr. Green has spoken about on today. But again, I just want to thank you, Joshua, or Mr. Green, so much for coming and speaking to us. And I'm going to make sure that his video for everyone listening is available on our website again. Now you're able to click on where it says event videos on our site. And then any of the videos for the webinars that we have posted will be featured there, including this technology commercialization workshop and the innovation or the intellectual property protection workshop that we had just last week. It will also be available within the next couple of days. But again, thank you so much, Mr. Green, for coming. And thank you everyone also for coming today. Does anyone have any other questions? Sure. Okay. All right, so we're going to end this session now. You may feel free to reach out to Mr. Green with the information that he's provided, and you can reach out to me via the Minority Small Business Launch Center website. Also, my email address, I'll put it in chat for everyone, is pperry-rivers@vsu.edu. Have a great day, everyone.
Bye, all.